que vai falar do Programa Carbono Neutro Mato Grosso 2035, as inovações e as novas implementações do programa no Estado e a perspectiva para os próximos anos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's talk about the panel Carbon Neutral for Mato Grosso do Sul. I'm going to invite Governor Mauro. One, understanding this huge challenge that the world has established. We have understood that we had a strategy a few years back. We have planned to accelerate our actions, and this objective of having a state economy with emissions neutralized by a set of actions to carry out carbon sequestration. We have the goal that in 2030, that seems like a bold goal since most of the planet has established 2050. In the Brazilian reality, it seems very utopic and unreal to establish a goal to be achieved 30 years from now. In our country, we don't have the culture of planning in such a long term. When we say that we are planning for something to happen in 50 years, if you know our culture, we say that we are throwing something to the future, something that we don't want to do now. In the state of Mato Grosso, we know that we have to have concrete actions happening now. And we in Mato Grosso, we have these actions happening now. We are doing nothing more than organizing a set of works and methodologies, agreements, behaviors in our production sector. And we are doing that not only as a government, because the government is one of the pieces for this to happen. Maybe the most important piece is the adhesion of the production sectors, the production chains, and most of them and most of the producers understand the importance of this challenge, and they are with us so that we can establish the actions, the goals, and build the results. So I'm happy once again to talk about this topic here. Concrete actions that already happened and the results that we are already harvesting. And I'm sure that perfecting this direction, we are going to get to 2030, reaching this goal of 80%. And in 2035, we will zero our emissions, giving another example to the world. There are many countries that come to these conferences, they make their announcements, they take their commitments, but practically very few things have happened. The Paris Agreement in 2015 established a few goals in terms of financial commitment, and that the developed countries have to give. But as important as it is to make those investments, are the changes in production arrangements. And differently than what was agreed were the accomplishments by those countries. And we, a subnational entity, are doing our part. And I hope the Brazil does its part, and I hope most of the countries do their part, or else these conferences are going to lose their credibility, and many COPs are going to lose their credibility as well. Thank you very much and have a good event, everyone. Nepstad from the Earth Innovation Institute.
Também convido Dr.
I
Eric
also invite Dr. Eric Mazon, prosecutor of the Public Prosecution of the State of Mato Grosso, Fernando Sampaio, from the Institute Produzir from Mato Grosso, Haroldo Montenegro, representative from Global Eco Rescue. And for us to start the event, I'm going to do a brief presentation. I'm going to ask you to excuse me so I can stand up. I'm going to talk about what is the carbon neutral program and what are our actions after the launch of the program. Emissions and to establish what would be our trajectory of emissions, and that's why we launched in Mato Grosso our neutral carbon program 2035 based on the trajectory that was assessed. And obviously, the program is structured on what we have in terms of our three biomes. The symbol of the carbon neutral program is based on our three biomes in Mato Grosso.
Só minutinho. Eu vou te pedir ajuda para passar. Passou? Muito bem. Só deixa eu...
Very well.
Passou mais de um? Não? Ok.
Reduction target of 80% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. And the program is already structured with 12 priority actions and has a governance that is part of our government structure. It is inserted in the public policies of the state of Mato Grosso and also in the strategies of the production sector of the state of Mato Grosso. And the question that we were asked why we launched the program was, why is Mato Grosso able to do differently if the countries have as a goal the year of 2050 for the decarbonization? It's because Mato Grosso is already doing it. The two priority actions are structured in programs and actions that are already undergoing in the state of Mato Grosso. Throughout the next few years, these actions are going to be reviewed, renovated, and the planning of the state government regarding the public policies and the incentives that are going to be given are structured in all of these actions. For us to get to know a little bit of what is being done by the state of Mato Grosso, it is always good to remember that since one of the actions has to do with the maintenance of the vegetation of the state of Mato Grosso has 62% of its area preserved, over 562 square kilometers, which represents New Zealand, Denmark, and the United Kingdom together, which demonstrates that we are in the path of carbon neutrality. Obviously, here in the hub, the fight against forest fires and illegal deforestation in the state of Mato Grosso, and our actions already get 85% of reduction in the last 20 years. And we have zero tolerance against illegal deforestation in the state with a consistent plan of technology and accountability of the offenders. Besides, for the strengthening of the forest and the income produced from the forest, Mato Grosso has as a goal the expansion of the sustainable forest management with the projection of 6 million by 2030. Only this action represents a reduction of 16% our territory preserved. We also have 6% of our territory under restoration, which is equivalent to a little more than the whole Denmark. These actions are reinforced by the rural registration. And Mato Grosso is the state with the best CAR performance besides the maintenance of forests and the strengthening of the forest income. We have the strategy of increasing agricultural productivity in the degraded areas and recovery of degraded areas. The production is going to be improved with the integration between system after Mato Grosso do Sul, and as the producer of biofuels, Mato Grosso also has a major representation. We are producers of biofuels, and in our fleet, we use ethanol as the major fuel. Mato Grosso is the third largest producer of ethanol in the country, and when we talk about corn ethanol, Mato Grosso represents 86% of corn ethanol production in Brazil. And until 2030, we will have 20% of the market production of ethanol. Further, the decree that creates the program Carbon Neutral brings the 4 seals of the program: the seal of supporting, commitment, and carbon zero. This year, we implemented the platform of concession of the Carbon Neutral program. The platform is online and free, and after the simple checking of all documentation, you can have the seal. You as an individual or as a company can have the seal with the QR code. The seal and the certificate can be in English or in Portuguese. We have the platform and we have the seal, and we have 14 entities registered with the seal, committed to the Carbon Seal program, and accredited to our Carbon Seal program.
Ok. Bom, mostrando então as entidades
Now I will show the entities that already have our seal, that already adhere to our carbon zero program. They have access to
pode deixar aqui nessa. Isso. Estou mostrando todas as entidades que já
Now I'll show you all the entities that already have the neutral carbon seal, the cotton producers of Mato Grosso, sector, the FIEMT sector, UNI, the National Union of Corn Ethanol, and IDH. We also have individuals that are committed, that are with us. And to finish my presentation, we have today the launch of a new phase of the neutral carbon program, which is a journal that is going to bring the 2060 practice from the Brazilian Association of Technical Standards, ABNT, demonstrating how it is possible to implement the neutral carbon in Brazil. We're going to have documents that want to compensate greenhouse gases. That was a bottleneck when we launched the program for companies that wanted to know which were the criteria that we were going to use. That's why the state of Mato Grosso had an agreement with ABNT, and this is the reason of pride for Mato Grosso. So ABNT is going to bring to everyone standards that can be followed, and that will guide not only the neutral carbon program for Mato Grosso, but all the state programs that aim at decarbonization. Besides distributing the journal to you, it is going to be available governor for us to take a picture. And before taking a picture, I would like to invite Silvio Bernsky, the representative of ISO. And symbolically, I would like him to talk to us a little bit about the relevance of the launch of this ABNT standard for the climate agenda of ISO. ISO has a very relevant international and national role, so I would like to hear from him about today's launch.
Thank you for the invitation. My name is Silvio. I am the General Secretary of ISO and International. Your question, what is key, especially for Brazil, is is that Brazil is now part of the definition of the international standards to reach the global net zero. We have launched, with the support of ABNT and other members, the guidelines for net zero at this COP27. From A to Z, all the necessary definitions so that the governments, organizations, and companies uh, can attest in a reliable way and establishing their transition plans and certifying that they are taking concrete actions in this transition. A very important part is that carbon neutrality of product and services from the organizations. And launching this work, ABNT is an integral part of going to have sectorial works thinking about different sectors on how they can accelerate their process of transition into net zero. Thank you, Sylvia. For the Brazilian states, for the implementation of the carbon neutral program 2035, the norm it also brings the rules and standards on how the planning should work of all those committed in reaching the decarbonization target. So I wanted us to take a picture with the standards so that we could promote that. Thank you. I'd like to call the state secretaries who are present here so that we can take a picture together, since it's a project with ABEMA and ABNT with the I will give the floor to the next panelists so that we can talk about what happened in the last year. And I invite Fernando Sampaio, the executive of the PCI Institute, to produce, conserve, and include with a carbon neutral strategy that is very important and is connected to the established targets. Fernando, explain to us how PCI is interacting with the program and how is it possible that it could strengthen the actions that we implemented in the neutral carbon program. I think it was timely to speak about that, to show the relationship between PCI with the carbon neutral program. Are commitments that the state of Mato Grosso have established. They are climate commitments, and the PCI targets are connected to the decarbonization journeys in the commitment of carbon neutral carbon. And this decree of neutral carbon is recognizing that the target is also part of this set of targets for PCI. So when we talk about the different trajectories, we are talking about conserving vegetation, improving the cattle raising activities and restoring pastures. So the commitment of the state is the same, is neutral carbon through efficiency in the use of land in the territory is not able to do everything. The government has a very important role, but these targets are not happening if we don't have a public-private articulation. And PCI is this instrument with which we are able to attract the private sector to participate in this process. Today in the world, we have hundreds of companies with net zero commitments as well. And these companies must put these commitments in practice, and several of them interact with the state of Mato Grosso, either because they buy products or they have interactions. So how could this net zero company as they implement their commitment, also help the state to advance in this commitment? And we have mapped many companies producers to transition the degraded pasture into agriculture. Bayer that is buying the neutral carbon of those who are reducing emissions, applying good practices. Carrefour supporting the small producers, intensifying their lands, restoring their lands. So in Mato Grosso, we have several companies dialoguing with us with concrete actions that are helping decarbonization. And PCI, one of the roles of the Institute is to help bridge this gap between the private sector and the state so that the actions of the companies could advance the state. And the other aspect is finance. We're going to speak about that on Friday, but there's a cost for this transition. Forest pastures. This has a financial cost, and you have many investments from the productive sector, and we also have a share of producers who do not have access to finance or who find it difficult because they are not able to participate in the finance system. And how can we create instruments and mechanisms to transform in scale? What are the investment models to help in this transition for them to happen in the field? So neutral carbon has this a policy of CAD, everything that we've been advancing a lot, and what we must do at the end. So the state of Mato Grosso is creating the instruments to bring have isolated projects. How can we create a flow of funding instruments that are able to support not only the producer, the indigenous people, the small producers to advance in with decarbonization and applying good cattle raising practices, regulating and complying with the forest code so that we can become carbon neutral. Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Daniel, I will ask you a question, a practical and objective question. How you, as a supporter of the carbon neutral program, see the perspectives of the future to execute the actions in the state of Mato Grosso, and how is the I'm I'm my voice is giving up on me, but I'm going to speak. At the Copenhagen COP, Laio the governor at the time, declared to the world that Mato Grosso had a commitment of reducing deforestation in 89% until 2020. In 2012, the state reached 88% of reduction. From 8,000 square kilometers per year for less than 1,000. From then on, the total contribution from Mato Grosso for this climate change agenda has been 1 gigaton and from this total 1% has received a type of compensation using the RAM program. Germany, the United Kingdom, investing 50 million euros approximately in a period of 3 years for the indigenous and programs for the different communities, for the programs of forest management with SEMA and other fiscalization bodies, 1%. So there's this big issue on how to finance this transition. The Governor Mauro Mendes launched in Glasgow last year. The good news is that to think about another scale of funding. So the RAM program was key. My understanding is that all the villages of Mato Grosso received support to deal with the pandemic due to the RAM program. There's support for the life plans, but the money is very little. Looking ahead, now we still have chances to raise funds, and we estimate that this balance could be 20 billion reais for the state of Mato Grosso until 2030. 20 billion reais. This is the potential revenue that the market could have to pay for those who are not deforesting. This is not the right concept because we cannot cool down the innovation, the production increase. This potential of 20 billion reais must be seen as money to incubate new technologies, new economies, the bioeconomy, new efficiency gains in the livestock production. We must attract money from abroad with mechanisms to reduce risks. We must use the RAM program for the indigenous people today, and we should multiply per 10 or 20. So, and what I admire is that the governor is talking about feasible things. He's not inventing fake promises. It's possible to get carbon neutral in time, but with no partnerships, we won't be able to do. We cannot freeze the rural economy. This is an agenda to enhance, innovate, and diversify the rural economy. So, since that COP at 2009, when we became partners with the state of Mato Grosso, and we were honored to pass to the next stage. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. In fact, the partnership is important for the execution of any action and in diverse segments, and that's why I would like to also for him to explain the perspective of production representing the livestock sector of Mato Grosso, how this sector is inserted in the program, and how do you see the strategies for the Institute in the next years in an integrated way with the carbon neutral program 2035? Thank you, Maureen. I'm a signatory of the Carbon Neutral Mato Grosso program as a producer and as the Meat Institute at Mato Grosso. So it's according to what we believe in Mato Grosso, because improving carbon in livestock, it's an opportunity, it's not something bad. So we have two big opportunities in livestock that I apply in my farm. Pastures in Mato Grosso have some degrading stage. They are sub-used. We need technical assistance. We need communication campaigns to show that to the producer that with better management, with investments and support of technical assistance, and with genetics, we can intensify. Today, the soil is exposed with some bushes and some pasture. And when you invest in the pasture, you see the grass, and the grass is perennial for the entire year. And this grass is carbon being fixated in the ground. So you have the microbes working there. To intensify this pasture, even if you have 200 hectares, only intensifying, you have fixed the carbon. It's huge pasture. They are going to eat in this little patch, and then they're going to stay there for 20 days in the first one, and then they go lot by lot until they reach the first one again. So the carbon is fixed in the ground. The cattle is better fed, so you're reducing the age of slaughter and emissions per production, and the producer is only earning with that. It's an easy agenda for us to implement. The producer is not resisting to that, and I believe it's going to work, and the deadlines are feasible.
Do Mato Grosso. A gente quer assumir
And
essa
we want to revert the image of Mato Grosso. We have to take over this narrative. This is the message by the governor, Mauro Mendes. We should chain. Since livestock is occupying more space, we should perfect the regulation so that we can guarantee the conservation of this forest asset, this carbon asset that is guaranteed by law. So the two work fronts that we work in the institution with the campaigns, intensification in carbon, and also in the slaughter, in the refrigeration companies that IMAC is representing, we have the government of Mato Grosso in our governance with the Secretary Cesar Miranha as the president, two livestock producers, and two refrigerators representatives. So we've been also with the public prosecution, we have the traceability where we are able to measure the efficiency of the legislation. So complying with the law in food. It's a victorious program. We will take back the reins of the narrative in Mato Grosso. Thank you.
Thank you, Caio. This is one of the biggest singularities since the launch of the program, the integration of all the actors that somehow have to contribute and be in a program that is so big and so challenging. I would like to invite to take the stage Dr. Érico Mazon, the prosecutor of the Republic in the state of Mato Grosso, who is going to speak on behalf of the prosecutor's office and is going to share the experience of this control body, and he's going to talk on behalf of the public administration and the priority actions that are already part of the work of the prosecutor's office. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mauren. Thank you to all of the participants on the round table. It's an honor to speak to you. The prosecutor's office and these actions of decarbonization has worked for many years in the project Carne Legal Meat, that was created in 2012, and the legal meat rules oblige the butcheries to verify that if the there's any land conflicts. When the fridge purchases from cattle farmers, they have to do this environmental analysis. So that started in 2012. This has been going on for 10 years. And these analyses from Carne Legal, they were so consolidated that we created a unified protocol. It's the same protocol that Greenpeace signed in 2009 with the major fridges in Mato Grosso, started from the rule of the public prosecutor's office. So when this agreement was signed, when we look at the levels of deforestation in 2012, that's when the deforestation which is the first activity that you perform in a deforested area. When those protocols started, deforestation started decreasing a lot because the fridges started not buying meat from deforested areas. So for the environment as a whole, that was a gigantic project. It won awards from the UN. That was one of the projects that most contributed to the environment in history. Those are basic rules today. All cattle raisers need to follow those rules in Mato Grosso today. 80% of cattle raising has to be inside that protocol. And for the cattle cattle are being sold illegally, and the cattle raisers, they can be back to selling cattle legally if they recover that deforested area. We are doing a work of land regularization with them. So if those cattle raisers want to recover that area and they want to regularize the area, if they want to regularize their CAR, we are helping them, we are assisting them with all their environmental problems, and that is within that governmental project. Without all of those structuring actions, we cannot, in fact, pasture forest integration, all of those assets that carry out carbon fixation, and also release the cattle raiser for a legal trade with traceability. especially with the European Union, with the United States, and China, that require traceability for the supply of products to them, like meat, soy, palm oil, and other products. So all of those actions carried out by the state of Mato Grosso and IMAP have our support because it aims at environmental protection and the regularization of. Please sit down. All of the speeches today only demonstrate that the neutral carbon program inside the state of Mato Grosso is solid, consistent, and can promote neutralization until 2035. The advances demonstrated this year show that we have a lot of work to do, and to wrap up our panel, we're going to sign another partnership that can contribute to the evolution and the implementation of such an important program for the state. Within the structures and the projects of the state of Mato Grosso, we have a project called Juntos pela Araguaia, which does not belong only to Mato Grosso. It is not in the Amazon part of Mato Grosso. Of the Regional Development Ministry and the Environmental Ministry, and it has the purpose of restoring 10,000 hectares between the states of Mato Grosso and Goiás. We present this project as one of the initiatives related to the priority axis of restoration of degraded areas and global eco rescue, like the program, and is interested in developing the project for investment and scale for restoration in Mato Grosso. So I would like to invite Haroldo Montenegro to speak a little bit about why GR is interested for the program and what is it is going to present as an initiative, so that we can now celebrate the first step of this. Grosso.
Quando a gente pensa no Mato Grosso, vem à cabeça que agora nós somos 8 bilhões de pessoas.
We have to think about
8 bilhões. Então, imagina
now being 8 billion people. So now think about the responsibility of a state that is a big producer of food, with a double challenge, continuing increasing this production continuously, and at the same time fighting against the actions that go against the climate change. This is a bold goal by Governor Mauro Mendes. The GR to the investments in Mato Grosso. This is a company of investments, of project development. It structures finances, and the project Juntos pela Araguaia has a huge diversity. It is a multidisciplinary project. It will introduce techniques, sustainable techniques. It will protect springs. It will gather all of those details in a huge scale. Araguaia, and we hope Juntos pelo Araguaia is our second project in the state of Mato Grosso, inside a very big pipeline that we have been studying in the state. To certify carbon credits on nature-based projects, we go through legal scrutiny. So all of those properties have to be regularized. So it has to do with everything that was discussed here. GR is very happy and honored to be working in the state of Mato Grosso. We have arrived here in May this year. To wrap up this panel, I would like to invite the Chief of the Civil House and the Governor of the State of Mato Grosso so that we can sign the Memorandum of Understanding and start the next step of this important project, Juntos pela Araguaia. Recommended practices, please talk to our production.